CNS, Vice Admiral Rahul Gokhale, Chief of Staff, Western Naval Command, Open Area Commanders, Flag Officers, both serving and retired, Commanding Officers, Officers in Charge, Logistics Officer in Charge, Naval Pay Office, Commander Vijay Vadera, President, Navy Foundation, Mumbai Chapter, distinguished veterans, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and my personal greetings to all of you. At the very outset, of course, let me thank all of you on behalf of the Western Naval Command for turning up in such large numbers. The Veterans Lunch is a very important annual event for us, and it's very heartening that we always get very good response from the veterans, and we get this opportunity of meeting you and exchanging notes with you on this occasion. We look forward to this occasion every year, and I'm so glad that, like always, we have a very good turnout this afternoon. And I'd like to thank you for taking your time out, despite having very busy schedules, to be with us this afternoon. Traditionally, of course, the CNC and the CNS, as the case may be in Delhi, sometimes gives veterans, for their benefit, a rundown of what's happened, so that we keep you informed of how your Navy is shaping up, what your Navy's been up to in the last year. So please allow me to take a few minutes to just update you on a couple of things that might perhaps interest you on what the Navy has been doing from the time we had the last Veterans Lunch. The past year, of course, the Indian Navy has been an extremely busy service. We have been deployed like we've never deployed before in all parts of the world. We have been, operating extensively across the full spectrum of naval operations. And as a rare opportunity, we got mobilized last year as well. But I'll just come to that in a minute. Frontline ships, submarines and aircraft of the Western Naval Command have been extremely busy. Like all of you know, the Western Naval Command normally and traditionally has been doing the heavy lifting of all security operations on behalf of the Indian Navy. Last year wasn't an exception. Our ships, submarines and aircraft have been on the front line like never before. The focus, of course, has been on maintaining very high operational readiness, ordnance centricity, making sure that our ordnance falls on targets correctly, technical maintenance, and a fair bit of indigenization. Our units have maintained near continuous presence on what we call mission-based deployments in various parts of the Indian Ocean region across all areas of interest. Our operational tempo has been extremely high. The Western Naval Command in particular has conducted many operations successfully in close coordination with other two services. To begin with, of course, last year we had a theatre level operational readiness exercise, what we call Tropics, was conducted from January to March of 2025. That saw the participation of a total of 67 ships, 10 submarines, and more than 90 aircraft. So that's a big deal. We mobilized all these forces, and it was an exercise that was huge in scale and purpose, and it went off very well. Just as well, because immediately after that we had to get into operations. Operation Sindoor, like all of you are aware. In April 2025, of course, we had the dastardly attack in Pahalgam, and so we mobilized as a nation, and the armed forces took the lead. And of course, we were mobilized, and the Navy played a very important role. We mobilized an unprecedented number of ships. 30 ships and submarines were turned around in some record time, and within a very short period they were on the front line and poised to do whatever the Navy would task them with. The whole force was under the umbrella of the INS Vikrant Carrier Battle Group. We showed very assertive presence, and in our understanding, that assertive presence made a very big difference to the timing in which, by which the ceasefire was announced. So we feel that we had a huge impact by just being there and mobilizing, and the people who watched these kind of things knew what we were capable of doing, and if the conflict were to prolong a little more, then perhaps we would have done something very serious. And therefore we are quite happy to have contributed there as well. After Operation Sindoor, of course I can't say after because technically Operation Sindoor is still ongoing, but after those operations of Sindoor that got over on the 10th, 11th of May, the Western Naval Command was made the lead service of a tri-services exercise. The Navy was made the lead service, and the Western Naval Command was the lead command to plan a tri-services exercise which we did off the Gujarat coast. It was called Exercise Trishul. It was conducted by the Western Naval Command in close coordination with the Southern Army Command and the Southwestern Air Command. Of course, it gave us very valuable lessons on the way we had mobilized and on the way we continue to mobilize. The highlight, of course, of that exercise was very wide participation. We had participation of people apart from the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. We had the Armed Forces Special Operations Division. We had the Defense Space Agency, the Defense Cyber Agency, the Indian Coast Guard, the Border Security Force, and the rest of it. But among the armed forces alone, we had 30,000 troops and over 475 vehicles from the Army, 25 ships and 3 submarines from the Navy, and over 50 aircraft from the Indian Air Force. So it was quite a substantial force that was mobilized. The exercise was conducted in 3 phases of the Gujarat coast, and of course, all of us were personally involved, and we have inside knowledge that it was tremendously useful. We carried back home a lot of lessons, and hopefully, what we have been able to implement, we have, and what we haven't, we will continue to implement them in the coming days. Quite apart from all of that, we've been continuing to negotiate the non-traditional threats, maritime terrorism, piracy, robbery, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, trafficking of humans, drugs, arms, all of these continue to rise. The North Arabian Sea, the Indian Ocean region are extremely complex ocean spaces. They keep us challenged all the time, and we are deployed always very actively to this is par for the course. This is our bread and butter stuff that we do every single day of our lives, and that we have to superimpose on tri-services exercise and mobilizing for Operation Sindoor. The Western Naval Command has initiated an exercise called Operation Sanchet. It has combined several mission-based deployments together. We are heavily invested in that. We commit forces on a daily basis. We have one ship of the Arabian Gulf at all times. We have one ship of the Horn of Africa wherever required. Keeping these ships committed there round the clock, replenishing them, having them turned around, that takes quite a commitment. We have been doing that always, as we have been doing for many years previously as well. In the last 2 years alone, a total of 44 anti-piracy deployments have been undertaken, with more than 180 personnel that we rescued from sea, 8 piracy attacks we thwarted, 62 pirates we apprehended, and we provided safe passage to over 130 million metric tons of cargo bound for Indian ports alone. We have also been successful in our approach to anti-narcotics operations, with close to about 7,000 kgs of narcotics worth about 40,000 crores that we have seized from February 2024 alone. Of this, one ship, INS Tatkash, a frontline frigate of the Western Fleet, on one day alone seized about 2,500 kgs on the 31st of March, and that was valued to about some 3,000 crores of rupees. So, this happens alongside everything else that we do. We also have a diplomatic role, and in that diplomatic pursuit, we have been actively engaged with friendly foreign navies, and we continue to do that. It might interest you that the Navy had very remarkable two maiden exercises last year. The first was called Ekayem, Aikeyme, Ekayem, which actually is a Sanskrit word that means unity. But when you expand that abbreviation, it was actually Africa India Key Maritime Engagement. It was quite an interesting construct where we had the Indian Navy on the one hand, and all the navies of the east coast of Africa on the other as a second partner, and we exercised together. The lead service, the lead navy on the African coast of the Tanzanian Navy. So the Indian Navy and the Tanzanian Navy technically coordinated the exercise, but we had about 10 African navies participating, so we had them in delegations and in ships. We had a harbour phase, we had a sea phase, and we also had a deaf expo of some kind there. Small beginning, but it was a great concept. It was extremely well received, and we hope to continue doing it, and where we can even ramp it up. But it was a very, very good initiative, and a lot of people who watch these kind of things felt that it's a good beginning that we've made to perhaps displace China from what they do, and see India as a key engagement partner to the whole of Africa, rather than just doing bilateral engagements with those countries. The second interesting exercise that we undertook, this again is quite remarkable, was the deployment of INS Sunaina as we rechristened it for a mission. We called her Indian Ocean Ship Sagar. and Indian Ocean ship Sagar was deployed from April to May of 2025 with a combined crew of 44 personnel from 9 different countries. So the whole idea was, we say we give an Indian naval ship, which we call IOS Sagar, we embark people from other navies, and we go and patrol the entire Indian Ocean region, including their countries, and we do security patrols to them. It was a command effort. This once again was received extremely well. It expanded the scale and scope of our engagement with all the littorals of the Indian Ocean region, and in our view at least, it enhanced our credibility as a lead navy in the region. Even as we speak, we are working on the second edition of IOS Indian Naval Ship Sagar's expedition, and that is going to be started off sometime in February or March. Apart from that, we exercise with our traditional, maritime partners. We had exercise Varuna with the French carrier strike group that came to India in March. We exercised with the UNAV-4 ships in May 25. We had exercise Bright Star with the Egyptian Navy in September. Exercise Konkan with the Royal Navy carrier strike group that came for the second time here. And then, of course, we had a maiden bilateral exercise with the Hellenic Navy, where one of our ships went all the way to Greece in October. All of this, of course, I'm talking purely of the Western Naval Command. The Western Naval Command is involved in this, and we did all of that. There is a construct called the Combined Maritime Forces, the CMF, that has been in existence for several years. After government approval, the Navy became a full partner of the CMF in November 2023, and since then, our ships have participated in 12 missions, and aircraft have flown over 26 sorties as part of the CMF. I'm very pleased to inform you that the Indian Navy will be assuming command of one of the task forces, the Task Force 154. That we would assume a command for 6 months from the 11th of February 2026. We've selected our teams, we've prepared our teams, and for the first time ever, I think the Indian Navy will be lead of a combined task force that's going to do maritime security operations in the North Arabian Sea. We continue to be engaged very actively with other nations by providing focused naval training, capacity building through transfer of military equipment and the rest. We also keep working closely with them to enhance their own maritime capabilities. We've gifted them ships, craft, all kinds of things. We're also the preferred partner for hydrographic cooperation, wherein our ships have provided assistance to a number of countries in carrying out hydrographic surveys last year. The Indian Ocean region, as you know, has become very prone to natural disasters, and there as well we continue to be very active. We have provided HADR operations round the clock, and even as I speak today, some of our ships remain poised for non-combatant evacuation operations from the Middle East. Like all of you know, it's heating up there, and if the government would want us to evacuate our Indian expats from the Gulf countries, Iran, we are ready, we are poised. We have our ships ready, and we have our plans ready as well. Operation Sagar Bandhu was launched in Sri Lanka in the wake of the devastation that was left by Cyclone Ditwa very recently. Our ships were already present. INS Vikrant and a frigate were present in Sri Lanka when the Cyclone Ditwa hit the east coast, and we were on the west coast. But from there we had carried HADR brigs, which is quite traditional to the Indian Navy now. When any Indian Navy ship goes to a foreign port, we carry a HADR brig with us, and very quickly we sent the HADR brig. We had the aircraft carrier there. An aircraft carrier had a lot of helicopters. The helicopters flew, picked up people who were marooned in various kinds of places, brought them to shelter. In all of about 4 or 5 days, the Indian Navy made a very heavy impact there, and got us a lot of visibility as a lead navy in the region. Small things that we've done, a number of them. Firefighting assistance we provided to a merchant ship called Van Hai on the 9th of June off the Kerala coast, including evacuating all the personnel safely. There was merchant ship Yi Chong 6 of the Oman coast that was also on fire. We put out the fire and rescued all the people on 29th of June, and the merchant tanker Falcon on the 20th of October. This, of course, is normal stuff for us. So ladies and gentlemen, one of the things we try to position the Navy as in the Indian Ocean region is, if you have a self-image, and we've created the self-image ourselves, we like to call ourselves the first responder in the Indian Ocean region, which means if there's any calamity, if there's any natural disaster, then we like to have studied where it's happening, how it's developing, and pre-position our forces there so that if it does happen, then we are the first responder and we can be the first responder to provide support and help to everybody else. That we think as a responsible lead Navy in the region, we have to do it. The second thing we like to position ourselves is what we call a preferred security partner. There are many small island littoral nations in the Indian Ocean region that have problems that are similar to ours, but they don't have the capacity to look after their own problems, and therefore they're always on the lookout, to try and enlist partners. We like to be the preferred security partner, and we'd like, through a combination of a hard power and a soft power, appeal to them enough so that if they have to seek somebody's help, they come and seek that help from us. So we try to position ourselves as the first responder and preferred security partner, and this has been some kind of a mission statement for us for the last several years. The Indian Navy's indigenization journey has been intensified. It has been intensifying over the decades, but because the government of India also has the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission, in some ways it just converges very well with what the Indian Navy wants to do. We are focused very heavily on indigenization these days. Indian shipyards have delivered more than 42 ships and submarines in the past decade alone. So the Navy has been growing. We have been replacing old platforms with new and significantly more capable platforms. We've had 42 ships and submarines being erected in the last decade. In 2025 alone, we have commissioned 12 ships. All of you know that. In Mumbai itself, we started with the dry commissioning of Surat, Nilgiri and Bagsheet on the 15th of Jan. After that, we commissioned INS Tamal in Petersburg, that was in Kaliningrad. That was the last commissioning of INS Tamal, in our view, is the last ever commissioning of an Indian naval ship abroad. And that is going to be transformed, and we're going to do that. We commissioned a ship, ASW shallow water craft called Mahe. At the moment, the Indian Navy has 51 ships under construction in various Indian shipyards. 51. It's a large number. In the Western Naval Command alone, we look forward to commissioning in the near future Balwan, which is an ASW shallow water craft, Samarthak, which is going to be a multi-purpose vessel, and Nipun, which is a diving support vessel. In the next 2 months or so, we hope to have these three ships joining our forces. It might interest you to know that there's a program that the Indian Navy follows. It's called Swavalamban. Swavalamban, of course, in Sanskrit means self-reliant or self-reliant. This has been a flagship program to enhance innovation and indigenization, and this is our conscious effort to reach out to startups, MSMEs, the industry at large, get them together, give them various kinds of problem statements. We call them challenges, IDEX challenges, give them challenges, and make them produce indigenous technologies for us, from big technologies to big ones, most complex ones. This program we started in 2022. It brings together talent from across the Navy, from technocrats, academia, MSMEs, industry, and a whole lot of them. We get them together over a 3 or 4 day period and give them full exposure to what we want, give them full visibility of how they can help us, and the rest of it. Our outreach so far has borne very good fruit for us. We have engaged over 150 MSMEs and startups through 198 challenges. I mean, we've got thousands of challenges that we put on the site, on our website, but 198 have been picked up. These have resulted in, a core of 28 acceptance of necessities, which is we start the process of signing contracts. These 28 projects alone are worth 2,750 crores. So the last 3 years, we've engaged MSMEs and startups, and we promised them contracts to the extent of 2,750 crores. The Navy alone, the IDEX is a Ministry of Defence's creation, but the Navy alone caters to about 35% of all the IDEX challenges. And I think we have done a lot of hand-holding, we have done a lot of technology incubation with people. We underwrite some of the risks that MSMEs take. We fund some of the R&D, and we are quite okay now these days to say that let's get into a joint R&D venture. If it works, that's fine. If it doesn't work, that's fine. At least that's learning for us. We're quite happy to underwrite that expenditure, and we promise all serious innovators and technology incubators that we will fund every project of theirs by at least 50%. So that's a significant mind shift in the way we operate, and I think that's borne fruit at the moment. We see a lot of green shoots sprouting, and hopefully these will get on to much bigger projects in the future. INSV Kaundinya was a very unique experiment that the Navy has taken on. It wasn't the Navy's initiative, to be fair, but the Navy supported it. It's an ancient stick ship. It's made without any nails, without anything, just by planks, tying planks together with normal cordage, with normal, natural fiber rope. It's a beautiful ship. We built it. The naval designer designed it. I was very fortunate to be there on the 29th of January when we launched the original passage. The idea was to retrace the ancient trade routes from India to Oman. So we were meant to flag it off from a place called Mandvi. It was meant to be from Mandvi to Muscat. But suddenly the flag off ceremony started taking a very high profile. So the ship headed to Porbandar, and eventually the boat was flagged off from Porbandar, sailed all the way to Muscat, and to very high applause. It was received in Muscat. The Omanis made a lot of it. I just come back from Oman last evening. I was there to go and see the ship, and had it was very nice. So that's another initiative that we're doing. Of course, this Kaundinya in concept is meant to do only 2 voyages. The Mandvi to Muscat voyage. When they come back from here, we give her a little bit of maintenance period. Then we do the Bali Yatra from Puri to Bali. We do that, come back, and then she's going to be lifted up and going to be placed in the National Maritime Heritage Complex, which is in Lothal, as something that we've created, and in a way it ties us to our past. But INSV Kaundinya has been a very interesting experiment, and the Western Naval Command has played a lead role in that as well, on behalf of the Navy, of course. We had 2 very distinguished visitors to the Indian Navy this year, and I don't know if it ever happened within a short interval. We first had the Honorable Prime Minister visiting us for a day at sea on board the Vikrant. I was very fortunate to be present on that day. It was the overnight sortie on the 19th and 20th of October, and the people who have awareness about these kind of things actually commented to say that the Prime Minister spent about 18 hours with us. This is the longest he has spent with any organization, anywhere, anytime in his entire political career. So what might come out of it, we don't know, but we are very happy to show him what we do, speak to him about our concerns. He was very attentive. At least we've had the top leader of the country coming to us and hearing firsthand from us how we feel, how our lives are, and so we feel that it's very important ties that's been broken, and it will all go well, I hope, for the Navy in the future. We also had the great honor of embarking the Honorable President of India for a day at sea on board a submarine. We took her on INS Vakshi on the 28th of December. We took her, we did a little bit of diving and brought her back, and she was very happy for that. So we were very happy to host her as well. So in all, ladies and gentlemen, 2025 has been a very active year for us. It's been very satisfying. It's been very rewarding. Of course, the highlight of it would be the operations that we do. And just so that I put the record straight, Operation Sindoor is still ongoing. We continue to be mobilized, we continue to be ready, and like the Prime Minister has said, now the ball lies in the opposite court. We are in the response mode. We are ready, and if the folks there continue to behave well, then obviously we will have peace. If they don't, then of course we will be compelled to respond. And in a way, the responsibility lies with them to maintain the peace in the subcontinent. But we continue to remain stood to. Our ships are, in a way ready. Our person is ready, and for us, the highest priority always has been operations. But that continues with particular emphasis now. And for us, the main effort of the Western Naval Command is our operations and our operational awareness and operations preparedness. So that was to give you an update. I have two small other points I thought I'd share with you. One, of course, is an assurance, and one is a suggestion. My assurance, of course, to the veterans is that we are cognizant of all your problems. I know that the ACHS in some places has not delivered as it ought to have delivered. A lot of veterans have had problems with the SPASH and the migration from the previous system to the new system. I've been in the naval headquarters and I was involved in the SPASH, so I know that in the fullness of time, it's a very good software. It makes pension management much better, delivery of pension much more efficient, visibility of people coming, going, all of that is much better. The problem really was it was made in a certain kind of software system, and that software required a lot of data. When we had to populate that software with data that was already present, there was a lot of mismatch, and because it was a secure system, the system rejected a lot of records because there was a lot of mismatch in spelling, in dates, in all of that. That took some time. We are cognizant of that. We will continue to do our very best to support the well-being and welfare of all veterans at all times. For us, this is something that's very important. So I'd just like to assure you that wherever, either to the president of the various Navy foundations or directly, if somebody does have a problem that we can do, we can address, we'll be very happy to do that. Of course, the Navy is not very resource rich. But whatever we can, we will certainly do. You will certainly not find a lack of attitude. It can't be because of a lack of trying or because of an attitude that we are not able to respond immediately to solve your problems. But we will continue to persist, and we will try and find a solution to every of your problems. The second thing I had was a small suggestion. I've said it once or twice before. I don't know how acceptable it is, but I thought it's time we think about this, because the Navy Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, for us is a very important organization. It is for the veterans, made by the veterans, it's manned by the veterans. It's for the welfare and well-being of the veterans. On the way from my home to here, I was just running through the charter and the founding, the founding instrument, the MOA of the Navy Foundation, and I said, what are the roles and responsibilities? What is the role of the Navy Foundation? The Navy Foundation is an organization that is being raised for the welfare and well-being of naval veterans. I just feel that the Navy Foundation ought to be in a way bigger than what it is. It's got to be a lot more autonomous. It can't be dependent on the Navy for everything that it does. Of course, the Navy will always support the veterans and the Navy Foundation. But I think the Navy Foundation ought to become a little more autonomous. The Navy Foundation should find ways and means of generating revenue, generating jobs by itself, for itself. I don't know why we can't set up some kind of a revenue generating enterprise run by the naval veterans for themselves. We can find the seed capital, we can get you credit from the market. We can do all kinds of things if there are well-meaning people who can put together a good idea, have a good business proposal. If anything, we pride ourselves on the human resource that we produce. At least to my mind, every veteran, the day he retires, he's got 10 to 15 years of very productive work at whatever age he retires. You get together a bunch of people who are well-meaning, who are willing to go and plow into the market, find out where the opportunities lie, find out where the businesses, what the businesses want, what is it that the community wants, set up some organizing, set up enterprise, raise some capital from the market or from the Navy or from somewhere, set up an enterprise, raise some revenue so that you can look after your own much better. I think we need to think of doing it. Why should somebody want to be employed by somebody else if the Navy Foundation has a good enterprise that it's clean business, it's clean people, it's an organization of high integrity, and it can be a beacon of excellence in any enterprise anywhere in the world, whether it's in the hospitality sector, whether it's in the education sector, whether it's in the social service sector, whether it's in the medical care and mental wellness sector. There are any number of fields in which people can get together, set up an enterprise so that you employ your own, get people. If somebody's retiring, he says, come on, we're the Navy Foundation, here's the parking space. Like the Navy says, here's your key on arrival. You say, here's your appointment letter on arrival. You exit, your logistician, come here and say, come on, why don't you join the board and be, the supply chain manager of the Navy Foundation enterprise. I think it's time to think of that. We can be bigger, we can be larger, and we can do a lot more for ourselves. There is a time when we can continue to be dependent on the government. There has come a time, I think, when we need to be a little less dependent on the government and anything else. We are people who are well-meaning, we are people who are very well educated, very well qualified. Our exposure of the world is something, is nothing less than extraordinary. I think it's time to think of how we can make the Navy a little more autonomous and a little more powerful and a little more able to look after its own. This is a suggestion. I don't know how politically correct it is, but I felt it. I thought I might just leave it to you so I can think of it. And I just finish once again by thanking you for taking the time out to be with us. It means a lot to us. This is a very special day for us. I look forward to interacting with you. If you have any problems, if you have any concerns, if you have any suggestions on how we can run the Navy better, if you have any recommendations on what needs to be done, please don't hesitate. We are all ears for you, and we look forward to continue to receiving your guidance and blessings. We are nothing as a Navy if the foundation that you laid for us wasn't that strong. So we are just taking your Navy, step by step forward as much as we can. So please continue to give us your support, your blessings, and your guidance. It's very, very important for us. And thank you once again very much for coming this afternoon. Jai Hind. God bless you.
I now invite President Navy Foundation Mumbai chapter on stage for his response.
Arvind Shekhawat, retired and serving flag officers, HODs, commanding officers, our respected senior veterans and esteemed colleagues, our gracious Veer Naris, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed an honor for me to respond on behalf of all members of the Navy Foundation Mumbai chapter to our patrons address.